Hello, listeners. So pleased to be bringing you a brand new episode today. I'm joined by Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hey Vicky.
So I'd love actually, Anna, to get things going for you to just give us a brief introduction to yourself.
Yeah, of course. So firstly, thank you for having me on today. I'm really excited to be here. So yes, my name is Anna Tydeman. I'm currently head of people and culture at Walking with the Wounded, which is a military charity supporting veterans and their families. I've been working with Walking with the Wounded for about 4 years. Prior to that, I was doing some freelance work as an HR consultant. And then my background prior to that was in operations management, really. So my entry into HR was through the operations route. And I really discovered there that I had a passion for the people side of managing teams and the operations side of things. So that's when I started doing my studies for HR and really carved out my path into the HR world. And I'm really lucky where I've landed with Walking with the Wounded because I absolutely love it. I get to do what I enjoy most about working in HR, in an organisation that I feel so passionately about. So I've got the best of both worlds.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's really great because I know we have some listeners that are potentially thinking about what their next career is, as well as some people that obviously are in your position or leaders. So I think it's really great to share that bit of your background. And to especially what you just said, like I'm doing work that I love in a place that I want to, because I think so many of us or so many people don't see that as an option, and it feels like there has to be some kind of sacrifice, and it's fine, by the way, if that's where you are, if you're listening, but it's just very
Mm.
powerful to hear you say that.
Mm.
And inspiring, definitely inspiring.
Oh, oh, good, good. I'm really pleased. Yeah, it wasn't an easy route, I guess, and it wasn't something that I was able to plan long in advance. It's kind of you take the opportunities that come to you, don't you, and you make decisions in the moment. And for me, they've worked out in my favour, but equally, it's a journey, isn't it? And sometimes you take a direction and think, actually, I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to retreat and go back, and that's absolutely fine as well because it's all experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. A big fear of ours is like going back, but sometimes taking one step back. What's the saying, like one step back, three steps forward? I think people say it the other
Exactly.
way. They're like one step forward, three step back, but
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, I think, that lots of decisions can be unmade, can't they? I fall into the trap of this when I'm particularly when I'm thinking about my career, that my next step is my forever move, that
Yes.
I'm setting up my whole life here, and actually that's not the case. If we go, like I said, if we go one direction, we can always veer off in a different path if we need to. So to remove that pressure of making a decision that's going to impact the next 10 years of my life, that's often not the case in my experience.
Yes, I always say decisions are data, and if we don't make the decision, we don't get the data.
Yeah.
So my own career looks very much like getting lots of data and moving steps all around. So
I love that.
so one of the big things, so our listeners know by this point that one of the things we do, you and I, is have a chat in advance and think about the big themes.
Mm.
I recall from our conversation, one of the big phrases that really stood out for me was your like the way you describe your role. So you said essentially it's about making it easy to be here,
Mm.
making it easy for your people to be here, even when, and
Mm.
we spoke about this, even when the work that you do might be emotionally charged and value driven and very connected, um, making it easy to be here. So can you tell me a little bit about that whole philosophy and how you even landed there?
Yeah, so I guess that's something that developed probably at the very beginning when I started managing people and teams and understanding what was important to the team, what was causing distraction to people in the team and pulling them away from the job that they were there to do. And it's different for every person. So you can't assume you know all of the answers for people. You have to listen to what's important to them, what's causing them a distraction or what could be easier for them, and then work around that. And some of those things are universal, but for me, I think it starts at really good basics, making it easy to be here. So that's and it's so broad a term that. So what I mean is it's about finding people who are attracting people to the organization who share values, because that gives you an immediate advantage that we're all pulling in the same direction. We've all got that North Star, and that passion for what we're doing. And I think that's really the bedrock of a positive culture. But then in terms of making it easy, it's about ensuring that people know what's expected in their role and what they can expect from us in return. So about being really open and transparent. And I think that starts at day one with people, right from the moment we meet them to interview people. It's about being really honest about what the organisation is, because we can always or often fall into the trap of trying to sell an organisation, can't you? When we're interviewing people, we'll tell them everything that's great about it, but perhaps not be honest about what isn't so great. And every place has got bits which they would like to improve or could be better. So it's about just letting people know truthfully what it is that they'll be joining. And then once people join the organisation from day one, it's about really helping them to absorb the culture that we've got so that they can mirror that and they understand and learn quickly how we do things around here. And going back to what those basics are, for me, that's things like job descriptions and role specs. It's about policies that are clear and transparent and people know where to find them. So they know what they can expect from us. They know our MO, and they begin to learn and trust, how we'll deal with things and how we'll approach things. So through the induction and training. So those are the really strong basics that I think are the bedrock of making it easy for people to be with an organisation. Some of the things.
Yeah, I love how you gave people like specific things that they can focus on. And even like if you're listening in this role, like I just think getting really curious around how well are we doing this? What could we be doing better? And I think that huge point that you made right at the start is balancing the what applies to all and what applies to the individual. And I think it's very easy to focus on what applies to all and skip what applies to the individual.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's about respecting people as individuals and celebrating that. We all come with different experiences and needs and motivations. So we can't put everybody in the same box. And if we try to do that, then people are going to, sit around the edges of that and not feel so comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think what makes the culture really positive is when everybody feels that they have a place here, everybody feels that they belong, whatever it is that they're bringing to the table, it's valued and it's respected. And to do that, you need to treat people as individuals. It's a balance because you need to be predictable. Like I said at the beginning, people need to know what they can expect from you. So you can't treat everybody differently, but as long as people trust that you're decent and that you will be fair and reasonable and work with people, then I think that gives you a really good starting point from it. And you mentioned there about listening to people, and I think the employee voice is so important. It's a really huge part of my role here at Walking with the Wounded, actually, and something that I've championed in all of my different roles and guises that I've been in, because I think you really need to give people that voice, and so different mechanisms as well. Different things will work for different people. So, an employee survey might be one way of doing things, but actually people might not trust the survey. They might think that they're going to be, found out if they give some negative feedback. So, putting other mechanisms in place where people can say what they're thinking in a safe environment, and just have an open conversation about what it is that's on their mind at the moment. So those are the things I really enjoy about those conversations. So we have an employee forum, for example, at Walking with the Wounded, where we have representatives that are nominated by others in the organisation, and they represent different areas of the group. And we come together 2 or 3 times a year, and the CEO sits in that meeting, and they'll gather feedback from the region that they're representing, and they'll bring it to the table. And that the rules of that room are anything goes. You can tell us anything. There are no recriminations for if you say something that might be controversial. There's no silly question. You can speak directly to the CEO and tell him what's bothering you, what's going well, what's not going so well, what changes you've heard about that other people are doing that we might want to consider, because we don't know all the answers. So it's important that we acknowledge that and that we let people help us as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful thing. I can imagine some people listening and saying like, I would love to have that. And how do you build the trust so that that's effective? Because I think for organizations, there's like the policies and then there's the effectiveness of that policy. Or there's the tools and the mechanisms like the forum, and then there's the effectiveness. So what would you say to anyone who is like, I would love to try it, and I'm coming from maybe a culture that hasn't been so well established, or a trust, where trust hasn't been Like I'm coming into a job and there's fires and I need to put out
Yeah.
those fires and I want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. And if you've had an experience where you haven't had that kind of openness, then you will carry that with you and you will be guarded in your next position and worry that that's going to repeat itself. And I think for an employer, the only way that we can overcome that is through our actions. So it's encouraging people to speak up and then letting them see that there is positive action that comes from that, that, you know, if they have an opinion that's different to what we may have thought, that's fine, you know, that's to be celebrated, because you know, we're curious about this, we want to understand that more. But I think it really is actions that build that trust, and you know, just being respectful in all of the employees' experience as well. And so things like, you know, treating people like adults, so, you know, being able to work flexibly, being able to manage your own diary, really small things that everybody deserves to have, and you know, by allowing that and encouraging it and leading by example in that, then I think people begin to believe that yes, it is safe here actually, and I can trust what they're telling me, and I do feel like my opinion matters and I can speak up if I want to.
Yes, I think that's a huge point. Like,
Mm,
how can you or how will you commit to actually creating that trust and that safety?
mm.
What might you say it looks like on the other side? So when you have the wheels in motion and you've created um, the policies, the culture, and the environment where people feel like it's easier to be here, and I've got the support of people that want to make it easier for me to be here. What are the differences that organizations and teams can expect on the other side?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, you know, people looking at us from the outside in, do you mean? Or
People looking from the outside in, or even like us looking at the organization, what might change? So I'm thinking about people listening that are like, well, this sounds like work. Like, why do I want to do this? Aside from of the obvious, that right, the surface, which
mm,
is like it's easier for people to be here, but what's the result of that? You know, when I'm going to my leadership team and I say I want to invest in this employment forum, I'm saying I want
mm.
to you know, to make it easier to be here because we're going to see X, Y, and Z. What kind of things?
Oh yeah, I see, I understand. So bringing it to walking with the wounded and where I am at the moment, that's a really easy question to answer, because it brings it back to our values. And you know, values are a bit of a buzzword, aren't they? But what I see at Walking with the Wounded is they really do drive decision making and inform things. So if ever I wanted to implement something, my first question to myself will be, our value of client first is our core value. And so my question is, right, how does that help the client? So if it's attracting brilliant staff, well, that's because we then, you know, that enables us to deliver an excellent service to our clients. If it's about empowerment, why is that important? Well, that's because it enables all of our team to make decisions and be autonomous and go and do their amazing work without fear that, you know, that they're stepping outside of the guidelines. They know their limits and they know their role and what they can do. So I think it brings it back to what's the benefit to the organisation? How does this align with our strategic aims? So, you know, it's about helping as many veterans as we can and making or helping to make England be a great place to be a veteran. So bring it back to that each time, bring it back to that core value. How does this support what we're trying to achieve? How does this support the bigger picture? And I think if you do that, you're sticking to your North Star and your journey. So that would be my first port of call. Always think, right, how does this help? How does this make our boat go faster?
Oh, I love that. How does this make our boat go faster? And I think so often we're answering that question in non-people ways.
Mm,
What you're highlighting for everyone listening is the value of like investing in your people and supporting your people to make the boat go faster. Because at the end of the day, someone's driving the boat. And if
yeah.
they're, you know, deciding to go left and then right and then backwards and all of that, it doesn't matter how fast the engine is or how smooth, like how well built the structure is, it still requires people to drive it. Um,
Mm,
so
mm. Yeah. And another phrase that I've heard, it's not mine, I can't claim it, but it really stuck with me, was about slowing down to speed up. And I think that's quite an important one as well, because we, you know, it's a fast changing world that we're in, and particularly with some of the people that we're working with, and the landscape changes. So we need to be reactive and agile. But I think you also need to just take a step back every now and again and think, hang on, am I doing this in the right order? Have I got my priorities right here? And allowing ourselves the time to do that, and to create that space where we can just reflect on where we are. Are we still on track? Are we still going where we want to go, or have we been distracted by something? Really small things as well, day to day, can help that. So one of the things that I've implemented at Walking with the Wounded is a meeting-free Thursday. So that's where on a Thursday we ask our staff to try and avoid booking internal meetings with one another if they can, because we heard that particularly through lockdown, when people were back-to-back meetings on Teams, that they would come out of a meeting with a list of to-dos and then not have the time to actually action them. So by creating this space in the week for them to sit down, knowing that the day is going to be theirs, it hopefully won't be derailed by something unforeseen, and they can just stick to the plan that they've made for the day, gives people some real thinking space and a bit of peace of mind that actually that stuff that's built up over the week, they're going to have a moment to catch up on it and get some order to their day. So small things. It doesn't have to be changing the world for people. It's just listening and being willing to give things a go. It may not have worked, but for us it has really worked.
Yeah, I love the whole, so obviously the fact that you shared a strategy with people, but I love what you shared around essentially what we're speaking about, listening to people, being willing to test something based off of the results that they want. And it's worked out for you. And you even said, and if it didn't, that's okay too. And we can move on to the next thing, and we can keep iterating, because we're solving problems for our people and not leaving them each individually to solve them themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really nice to be part of that as well. The energy that creates. It's a really nice feeling, particularly if you're involving your team in making those decisions and coming up with those solutions. Then it just helps with the general engagement and people feeling that they're being heard, they're being listened to, they're important, they matter.
Yes, involving them in the process. That's huge. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you.
All right. I was going to say, even in our coaching business with our clients, I always say to our coaches and how we train them is like not to give people the answers, right? You might see something immediately, but when we have a voice, even in our own head, in our own brain, we are much more likely to respond positively, to implement and to learn from it than, learning from a textbook or something like that.
Yeah. And also, I don't know the answers. I'm not the person that's dealing with our veterans day to day. I'm not the one out on the road and dealing with some really difficult situations. So it would be arrogant of me to think that I know answers to those problems that people might be facing.
Yes.
So we do need to rely on people feeling that they've got an open channel of communication. They can tell us how it really is. If they've had a terrible week, dealt with some really difficult things, and they're not okay, it needs to be safe for them to tell us that, and what they need from us to enable them to feel better about the week ahead.
Absolutely. Yes. I always say, like, you're the expert of you. And so often we try and put like circular shapes into square holes and be like, this is what we read online. This is what the gurus are saying. This is what this person that's sending an email to 7 million people said, or has 7 million followers. And it's like, it removes the actual optimization possibility of just collaborating and being like, this is what we've heard. What do you think? Because all of our roles are different. All of our brains are different. All of our experiences different. And that's actually a skill. When we invite, exactly as you're saying, I think one of the key takeaways for everyone from this episode is really that listening.
Yes, I think you're right. And also, I sometimes think, when you mentioned there, this email that's 7 million people have read or something, it popped into my head the conversation at the moment that's going on around hybrid and flexible working, and some employers asking people to go back to the offices. And I have to wonder how that feels for the employees. Those people who have built their life around being able to work flexibly now, and then their employer flexes their muscles and says, right, we need you all back. And there may be very good reasons for that are valid for some organizations, but I suspect that it's not the case for all. I suspect some are just, like I say, flexing their muscles, and that must feel really difficult if you're a member of that team and you fundamentally disagree with something your employer is saying, and you don't feel like your voice matters, that your opinion is going to make any change. That must be such a difficult place to be, and I would hope that any organisation I'm involved with doesn't allow that to happen for their employees.
Yes. And so when I was working in corporate and finance, there was an email that went around to the entire office with my manager, who I'll probably bring on the podcast at some point. And it said everyone has to come in an hour earlier. No reason given. This is like a decade ago, if not longer. No reason, just that's the change in policy. And she had 3 young kids at the time, and she, by the time she finished work, they were already home from school. So her morning and dropping them off was her time with them. She was a senior, like, managing director, and she just said, no, me and my team will not be doing that. And we'll
Love
stop
it.
in the spring. And if there's a problem with what we're delivering, then we can discuss it. But I'm not going to say yes to this change. And I share this here because I think that a lot of times, and this is not always the case. And obviously she was senior, like, if had I said it, I would have, I don't know what
Yeah.
happened, and probably wouldn't have been as smooth. But just for anyone listening, when policies change, there may sometimes be an opportunity to say no, or to ask why, or to ask the root cause behind it and see if you can
Yeah.
get a different way there. And again, this depends on the culture and the organization and all of these things, but I just say it because no other managing director of any of the other teams came back and said it, even when we were doing it. So I was like a junior walking in later than like all the senior people.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was what my team was doing. I wasn't gonna. So
Yeah.
just to say, like, maybe you do have a voice, and maybe there is an opportunity there, and maybe, again, we spoke about listening, and sometimes the best way to be heard is to be invited into the conversation. And if you're not being invited into the conversation, you can invite people to listen. Now, it might not go
Yeah.
smoothly, but I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's about inviting people, because lots of people won't feel comfortable approaching the CEO and saying, I've got an issue with this, or I've got a different opinion that I'd like to share with you. So it's about bringing them in, inviting them in, that word that you used. And I think, your old boss sounds fierce, and I love that about her. What seems to be missing from that was the why. Simon Sinek says, doesn't he, start with why? Because if you explain, if you had been explained why you were being asked to go in an hour early, if there was a really good business case for it that was going to support success of the business, you perhaps would have been more able to get behind it, or more able to understand why that was being asked and accept it. But without that, it just feels unreasonable, doesn't it? So it's explaining why the change is happening, why it's necessary, and like, being open, being transparent with people.
Yes, and I have had different people on this podcast with a range of working policies, and some complete flexibility, work however you want, whenever you want. Some with a dedicated day every week that people come into the office because they want people to get together in person. Some with team, like, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But what's very clear with, obviously, everyone that I bring on this podcast, because you guys care about what you do, that's why you're willing to come on and share, is the strong why and the consideration behind it. And I think, exactly as you said, connecting with the why and communicating with the why. So I think that's all in place of making it easy to be here through honesty, transparency, communication, and invitation.
Yeah, it just makes it easy for people to get on board with it, doesn't it? And connect with the organisation, feel safe in the organisation, and therefore they can get on and do their jobs as effectively as they can. So you brought it right back to the start there. I love how you did that, Vicky.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you want to share? Because I know we touched on things like around performance reviews. We spoke about, did we speak about one of your regional managers and something happening? Like, when we were speaking about things that you're changing and testing, did we discuss?
I think that might have been somebody else.
Okay. Someone with my name, perhaps, like Vicky Wales.
Oh yes, sorry. Yes, yeah, absolutely right. I'm so sorry, Vicky. I
It's
completely,
okay.
yeah. So
Been a
our
while.
colleague Vicky. Oh, I'd forgotten that I'd mentioned her. Yeah, Vicky's doing some really good work around AI at the
Yes.
moment. So she's our SME for employment. And I suppose, I'm a bit of a Luddite, so it takes me a while to get on board with these things. And I'm just dipping my toe into Chat GPT at the moment, and my mind is blown by it. But we need people with all sorts of skills, don't we? And who, we all bring something different to the table. And Vicky is just so forward thinking and so willing to embrace new ideas and explore and test things. So yeah, she's doing some work with our employment team around how AI can support the work that we do, be that with supporting our workers or supporting the veterans that our employment advisors are working with. So just for background, our employment programme supports veterans who are beginning to think about getting back into work. And that could be with things like interview help, CV writing, finding training courses for them, and helping them once they're in employment as well, checking in with them and seeing how things are going. So AI, is huge in the world of recruitment at the moment. And if we don't explore these things and get on board with them, then there's a danger that we'll be left behind, or we won't be doing the best for our clients, bringing it back again to that client first. What do they need from us? How can we be the best that we can be? So yeah, Vicky's doing some amazing work on that. So just being open-minded, I think, isn't it, and not fearful of change.
Yes. And I also see a parallel in there, AI, along with what you were saying around like the essentially what we were speaking about earlier when we said how you can make decisions and implement considering key trends or what will help the most people and adding that layer of personalization. And I think
Mm,
that's how we have the most success with AI as well.
mm,
AI is like the starting point, but it's not the ending point. We're not like we're
mm.
still allowing for that uniqueness and that like how do we want to apply it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And with people, we need to be careful that we don't undermine the personal touch that is so important, and that personal connection that we have. So it's about using it to complement
yes.
what we're doing rather than to replace what we're doing. It's about finding the way that it works where we don't lose the emotional aspect of dealing with other people. And from a client point of view, supporting them, what really works is that personal connection, and that having somebody with them throughout their journey. That can't be replaced with AI. And from an internal point of view, the decision making needs to still come from us. It needs to be, the AI can support it with data and background and things, but the context, that can't be. That's a human thing. That's where our expertise and decision making needs to come in.
Yeah, so even has me thinking about the boat that we said at the beginning, right? It's like
Mm.
all the technology can be there and there's still a human at the steering wheel because you don't know that there's going to be a whale, whatever.
Yes,
That would be
we. I think we may have exhausted that metaphor now. Do you?
amazing. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners that they can consider when thinking about how best to support their people around the theme of like making it easy to be here? And as we just said with the Vicky example, like letting people lead and change, I think is a huge part as well. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Gosh, there's probably loads. We could talk all day about this, couldn't we? Because it's such a big topic. But I guess my final thought on it would be coming back to the core value, the passion that people share. The definition of culture. I looked it up before we started because I wanted to sound clever.
Yes.
Is it's the ideas, customs, and social behaviour of particular people or society. What I take from that is it doesn't happen by accident. You have to be deliberate about getting the right people to join your team who share that passion. They may be motivated by different things or have different, experiences that they bring to the table, but we all need to be driving in the same direction. And I think if you get that right, then everything else falls into place a little bit more easily. So that would be my final word on it.
Such a great final word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your ideas, some practical strategies, some new ways of thinking about things. And I think there's some really powerful takeaways for everyone listening that they can think about and also action. Like even that employee forum could just be something so simple to test So thank you for being here. We're going to leave a link actually in the show notes. We're going to leave a link to the video that you shared with me about the work that you guys do. I just think
Oh, great.
it would be great to raise awareness and give a voice to that too, because the work you guys do is amazing. And I'll be honest, some, plenty of people we've brought on the podcast, their work is amazing as well. But I love that video that you shared with me, so we'll definitely link that up. We'll link up to Anna's LinkedIn if you want to message her or ask any follow-on questions. That would be great too. I didn't actually ask her in advance. I think I did. I can't remember.
That's fine.
It's going to be fine. And obviously, if you know anyone or you yourself would like to come on the podcast, please click the link in the show notes right now, submit the information. It'll take you a few minutes, and we would love to have you on sharing your expertise. If you are listening and you love the podcast, please leave a review. It's new. And share it with someone that you think would benefit. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Anna, our expert today, and I'll see you guys soon. Hi.